stories of the Balentes start in Orgosolo in June 1969, when the brave men and women of Orgosolo were involved in the rebellion of Pratobello against the Italian government, which wanted to build a polygon in the area of for the Italian military training exercise. Since 1969, those military bases in Sardinia have proliferated, and we will see that in a short while. But can we please invite Lisa Camillo and Lisa. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here.
Lisa, first of all, let's talk about this project. You lived in Australia for 18 years. You're an anthropologist. You worked with Aboriginal communities in Australia. And then you went back and this documentary came out. Tell us about it. Tell us the genesis of this documentary.
Yeah, I guess, working with Aboriginal people, I saw their attachment to their land. And I really felt that I was missing the same thing. I was so far away, and us Sardinians, we're very attached to our island. So I've decided to tell my story this time and go back and talk about the Aga Khan, these Arab prince that discovered or started up this beautiful coastline of Sardinia, Costa Smeralda, the Emerald Coast for the color of its waters. And we move. And so I decided I wanted to tell this story because my parents were involved, my mom wrote a book about it, and I just wanted to, capture that history that I thought was really fascinating, because also was a very good example of how tourism can really help a place, especially sustainable tourism, like the Aga Khan had envisioned back in the 60s. So that's how I started it, and then all of a sudden I hear that Sardinia is crippled by an economical crisis. Sardinians are leaving Sardinia. There is a spopolamento, there is people like abandoning Sardinia, so we're going to be in really soon, I think it was like from 2 million to only 1.5 million. So I thought, why this place that can have so much tourism, it's crippled by poverty? Why Sardinians are leaving Sardinia? And I discovered that Sardinia is full of military bombing ranges. And I thought, is this complete madness? And I wondered, what is the actual impact on the land and people? And so I had made a decision to abandon the Costa Smeralda glamorous, story, fun, and, of the 60s and the 70s, telling that story, to, just check out what was really happening. So I have a background in criminology and anthropology, and I thought, well, I tend to be quite curious, so I want to know and go as deep as I can to see where the problem is and what's happening.
So basically, this started as a personal kind of documentary, documenting your return to Sardinia, your return to a paradise that you remember as a child, to becoming a real political documentary. How did it work out?
Well, it's a lot harder. God, it was so much harder. Also, I spent 4 years doing this. 4 years talking about death and about terrible things. So it's not very glamorous, it's not very fun. And of course, also, we couldn't talk about it too much because it's a very political documentary. It's in Italy. There is actually another documentarian, Ilaria Alpi. She actually made a documentary. She was my age when she made the documentary in Africa about the mafia dumping in Somalia, I think it was. Yeah, thank you. And so of radioactive material, and so they killed her. So I had to kind of not talk about it at all and be very careful. When I had an appointment with Rai. My dad was like, you cannot go to Rai because they're going to block the film. Just release it first and then go to them later. And I was, I think it's going to be okay. And then all this stuff came out, just as everything that we talked about in the documentary that we spent years in researching came out with the depleted, the commission or depleted uranium. So it's already out there. So I think it will be a little bit easier or not easier, but anyway, a little bit less risky.
One little parenthesis about your family. Your father is Australian, your mother is Sardinian. Tell us about that little connection there.
Okay, my dad is from Melbourne actually, so I feel very much at home here, but from Italian parents, but from the Veneto region, so we're from the north of Italy. So, and my dad decided to, actually, the story is actually quite cute because my grandparents here in Melbourne, they had a Sardinian nanny. And she used to say to them all the time, you have to go to Sardinia, to my grandparents, you have to go to Sardinia, it's a beautiful place. And my grandparents, yeah, don't worry, we'll get there one day. And then an article in the Women's Weekly in the 60s came out and talked about Aga Khan and Sardinia, and the pictures were there. And, you know, the nanny went like, hey, look, this is amazing. This is my island. And my grandparents like, holy crap, this is amazing. So they went to Sardinia, and they're still buried there. And my father went to visit them after university, and met my mom. And they both worked for the Aga Khan, the Prince Aga Khan, and that's how they're...
And the rest is history, as they say. Let's move to the NATO bases in Sardinia. Why are they there?
Okay, so I think we might have are we going to show some history as well? Yeah, so as you'll see in the documentary, the NATO bases are there because, unfortunately, after the Second World War, we were actually, as we lost, big news, we lost, and we made a pact that we would have to have U.S. military bases in Sardinia. We have about 100 of them. Some have been closed and some new have opened. And now NATO is actually running them pretty much, NATO and the Department of Defense Force. And the money that they rent them out, basically. They rent them out for 55,000 euros per hour. Yeah. And and the money goes to Rome, to the Ministry of Defense, and nothing in Sardinia except illnesses and everything else that you will probably see today. So, shall we have a look?